Now you got your basic principles, we've taken out the myths, we've explored some of our basic core bread and butter exercises. Time to put it all into a few routines. Now, again, don't overthink routines. A lot of times people think that the key to getting the success that they want is following the right routine, and that's just wrong. The whole point of a good workout routine for any objective is to just keep you on track to make sure you're consistently getting the work in. The bulk of your results comes from how well you do the techniques and how well you execute the exercises. Regardless of whether or not you're doing planks first or leg raises or how many sets and reps you do, we're going after our basic objectives, and the routine just keeps you on track. That's all it can give you, is that basic structure. Nonetheless, the big point of a good routine is to also fit your time and your energy resources. So that's why sometimes it makes sense to have more work that you're doing where it's more sets and more exercises, but other times you have less resources, so you do less exercises, sometimes maybe even just one. Again, I myself usually will involve my core quote routine is just one exercise that I do a couple of good sets a couple times a week, and that's largely all I ever do. And that's more than sufficient because the intensity's there and I'm really working my muscles to a high degree of volume so that I'm challenging the muscular work capacity. Not necessarily pushing the muscles to failure, but really getting them to a good solid burn. So that's where a lot of these routines come from. Feel free to use these as templates. Change them up, add, subtract, modify them however you see fit according to your level of fitness and your abilities. But here are the basic routines that I find work as a good starting point. So first we have our level 1 workouts. Level 1 workouts focus on one exercise for 2 to 3 good hard sets, really pushing to a good degree of fatigue. And we're gonna just do this with each of the primary movements. Feel free to warm up with the cat-cow or the dead bug or any other type of core exercise or a lighter version of what you're going to do, just to kind of light up the muscles you want to work, improve the coordination or improve mobility, a couple of rounds, just until you feel they're ready to go. But level 1 workout number 1 is just leg raises or sit-ups. This is focusing on the dynamic exercises, and you're going to do 3 sets of each one, about 12 to 15 repetitions each, adjusting the difficulty. So that way, when you're getting towards that 15th repetition or 12th, if you're really going heavier, that it's really feeling like a pretty good burn. You don't want to get to the point where you feel like, oh, I got 15. Oh, la-di-da, it's nice and easy. No, you really have got to apply a good amount of intensity to this. So that's level 1 for dynamics, leg raise or sit-up, your choice. Use whichever variation, 3 good sets, 12 to 15 reps. The second workout that you can do is, of course, your plank hold or stretch out variation that you prefer, and that's 20 seconds if it's an isometric, or 8 to 12 repetitions if you're doing a dynamic stretch out variation. And again, that's for 3 sets. Rest as needed in between each one. You want to bring a good amount of exercise into each set, so therefore rest so that you can put a good amount of focus and intensity to each set. You don't want to be tired, out of breath, and feeling like you can barely hang on because you haven't rested enough in between, and that depends on a lot of variations, like variables like your conditioning level, how much energy you have, how much focus you have, and so on. So rest as needed. And then, of course, the other one is focusing on your side plank, holding for 20 seconds for 3 sets, or if you're doing dynamic like leg raises or the hip ups, the side bends, then you have 12 to 15 of those for 3 sets. Again, you want to make sure you're getting both sides of equal amount on each one. So either of those, you can rotate through each one for each workout that you do. So if you're working out, for example, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then you might do stretch outs on Monday, leg raises or sit-ups on Wednesday, and then the side plank variations on Friday. So you're alternating between each one. Won't take a whole lot of time and will certainly be very efficient and effective for regular, consistent training. Level 2 workouts are a little bit more energy and time intensive because they're involving 2 core exercises back to back that you can either do superset, or you can do one right after the other and incorporate it into any other workout routines that you're doing. So you go off and you do other exercises like push-ups and pull-ups before coming back and doing this another round. These are for 2 sets, typically, on each one. And a good way to work out for this is we have leg raises or sit-ups, again, the dynamic variation of your choice, 10 to 15 repetitions, and then you plank for 20 to 30 seconds, kind of like as a finisher. This is the isometric style plank, not the stretch out type variation. So that way you're using the exercise for a good way to burn out the abdominals quickly after you've done the dynamic variation. So you can stretch yourself out into the plank to make it more intense, because you don't want to have the level of intensity so low that you could just hold it for long periods of time. You want to really be pushing those muscles. Of course, the other variation of this is workout number 2, where you flip it. And for this, you will plank for 15 to 20 seconds, isometric there. And then you have the dynamic of leg raises or sit-ups for 12 to 20 repetitions, because typically you're going to be able to get more repetitions, especially after the plank a little bit. You're pushing that first set to a high degree of fatigue, but it doesn't necessarily need to be an all-out burnout. You're kind of compounding the effort from one exercise to the other when you're doing this. Workout number 3 for level 2 is you have your plank that you're doing for 20 to 30 seconds, followed by the side plank variation for 20 to 30 seconds on each side. Now this one you can mix up between either isometric or dynamic. It's basically going to get the same job done either way. It's more of a personal preference thing. Some people like to hold an isometric and watch the clock tick down, or some people like to go dynamic and use variations. So you can use the hip up or the leg raise on the side plank variation, or you can use the stretch out or saw plank variation on the actual planks themselves. And then finally, on workout number 4 for level 2 is you have leg raise or sit-up variation for 12 to 15 repetitions, followed by the side plank, either timed for 15 to 20 seconds or up and down for 12 to 20 repetitions there as well. And then finally, you have level 3 workouts. This one's a lot more intensive because it involves all 3 of your primary movements, one right after the other. You could do this in circuit format, or again, go from 1, 2, and 3, then go off and do the rest of your workout, whatever exercise it may be, and then come back. Again, these are regular 2 sets per time. And for this, I recommend starting off with leg raises or sit-ups for dynamic, 10 to 15 repetitions, planks for 15 to 20 seconds, or if you're doing dynamic, you have 8 to 10 repetitions on this, and then side plank variation for either 15 to 20 seconds if it's an isometric, or 8 to 12 repetitions for dynamic. Of course, you can create other level 3 workouts, just change the order of the exercises that you're doing them in. So you can do your plank first, then your dynamic sit-up or leg raise, then your side plank, or start usually side plank, then regular plank variations, and then sit-ups. You can mix and match, play it around. Remember, as long as you just get the work in, that's all that's really important. The order and the structure is much less important, especially with these types of core exercises, because they're all basically working the same fundamental muscles, and we're all working it with a relatively high level of intensity. So generally something with a resistance level that allows you to get 8 to 15 repetitions in most cases. 20 is kind of the high end. And then if you're doing an isometric, generally about 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds on the high end for that. But listen to your body. The objective with all these is to get a lot of tension in the muscle to effectively train for strength. And especially if you're trying to build up the muscle for the aesthetics of the core, you want to be pushing the muscular work capacity, so use enough volume and intensity to make your muscles get to the point where they're really struggling to hold the technique and effectively reach close to failure, if you will. But just make sure that if you're doing an exercise and you're feeling it in your lower back, your technique is starting to erode, you're done. Because one of the unique things about core training is that you can keep doing the exercise often, even though the muscles that you're trying to work have long checked out because they're too fatigued. So make sure you're paying attention to the amount of tension and control from those muscles that you're working, not just how long can you hold the plank for or how many repetitions you can do. So that concludes our little Delta session here, all about core training. This will give you the bread and butter of most anything you're going to need to effectively work your core for either strength, stability, mobility, and building up the muscles for aesthetic purposes for the rest of your life. If you ever have questions and need to run anything by me, hit me up on my email account, reddeltaproject@gmail.com. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. Best of luck in your workouts, and as always, be fit and live free.